Call the July 20th, 2022 Town Board meeting to order. Ms. Marco, will you call the roll?
Mr. Christo?
Present.
Mrs. Miller Herrera is absent. Mr. Dodson?
Present.
Mr. Mastriani?
Present.
Mrs. Collins?
Present.
4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, Ms. Marco. A quorum is present. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Christou, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Marco, is there anyone who wishes to speak under privilege of the floor?
Yeah, I think, is it Michael Sardo? You can go right up there.
Mr. Sardo, if you'll give us your name and address,
Yep.
and you have 4 minutes, and when it gets close, I'll wave my hand, okay?
Perfect. My name is Michael Sardo. I'm the property owner at 2800 Myrtle Avenue, right here in Schenectady, or Rotterdam. And I'm applying for a variance to the local ordinance for fences.
I'm sorry. You're right. You want to go to the zoning board?
Yeah, that's why I was a little...
Yeah.
It starts at 7:30.
Okay, it's still in here though, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I was a little confused when you called me up just now. But all right, perfect.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's it.
Megan, is there anybody on Zoom that wants to talk on privilege of the floor? Okay, then I'm closing privilege of the floor. And we'll start with our resolutions. Resolution number 225 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To appoint a police officer?
Any discussion?
Madam Supervisor, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera is absent. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passed. I believe the chief will now.
Mr. Carpenter here is one of 9 candidates that we ended up interviewing out of a total of 40 canvas letters that we sent out. In the end, he passed every part of our background investigation with extremely high marks, and he is the one that we ultimately selected to be our next police officer. He is a former corrections officer, two years of service with the Schenectady County Sheriff's Department, and he also served some time as a dispatcher with the Schenectady County Unified Communications Center. Joe, if you come over, I'll have so you do the oath. Left hand on the Bible, right hand man, and just repeat after me. I state your name.
Joseph Carpenter,
Do solemnly affirm that I will
do solemnly affirm that I will
support the Constitution of the United States
support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of
the office of police officer
the office of police officer
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Our next resolution is resolution number 226 of the year 2022. The clerk will read.
To appoint a deputy highway superintendent.
Any discussion?
Madam Supervisor, I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera is absent. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
The resolution is passed. Our next resolution is resolution number 227 of the year 2022.
To amend resolution number 21.22 of the year 2022.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera is absent. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes.
4 yes, 1 absent.
Resolution passes. Resolution number 228 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To approve budget transfers to the 2022 budget.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Christou. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera absent. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes,
4 yes, 1 absent.
resolution passes. Next resolution is Resolution 229 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To negotiate and execute a contract with Santor's World of Famous Fireworks LLC.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, do I have a second? I'll
I'll
second. Okay, Mr. Christou seconds. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera is absent. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes,
4 yes, 1 absent.
resolution passes. Resolution number 230 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To accept town board meeting minutes from the July 13th, 2022 meeting.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera is absent. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes,
4 yes, 1 absent.
resolution passes. Resolution 231 of the year 2022, the clerk will read.
To authorize release of retainage, tabled resolution 185.22.
Any discussion? Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Dodson. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mastriani. On the question, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Christo?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller Herrera is absent. Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Mastriani?
Yes.
And Mrs. Collins?
Yes,
4 yes, 1 absent.
resolution is passed. That concludes our resolutions for tonight. We'll now move on. Are there any board members who want to speak on their liaison report?
I'll speak. Just a reminder to the public that next Wednesday, we do have a special board meeting for the, basically a special presentation on relocation of town facilities to Viaport Mall. Please come.
Okay, is there any board member who wants to speak under miscellaneous? That concludes our business for tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Christou. Do I
And
have
I'll
a second?
second.
Second by Mr. Dodson. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.